April 10th, 1943, New York Harbor, United States. A cold wind whips across the towering cranes as they swing in rhythmic motion, steel giants feeding the hunger of a war machine unlike anything the world has ever seen. Smoke rises from shipyard furnaces and rolls across the docks, the air thick with the bite of iron filings and the sweet sting of oil. Sparks rain down like miniature stars as welders stitch metal plates into hulls that stretch longer than city blocks. Standing on the observation platform, wearing a plain gray civilian coat, is a man who was once feared beneath the waves, Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz, commander of Germany's U-boat arm. His narrow eyes scan the horizon, where 16 fresh Liberty ships wait for launch. Their hull numbers glisten wetly in the morning sun. To anyone else he could pass as a foreign naval attaché, but beneath the disguise is a man carrying the burden of an ocean war on his shoulders. His escort, a U.S. Navy representative ignorant of his identity, proudly gestures to the scene. "Beautiful sight, isn't it?" the officer shouts over the metallic roar. "We'll be launching 3 more before sunset." Dönitz doesn't respond. Not yet. He lets the numbers do the talking. To a German submarine commander, every ship here is another nail in the coffin of their entire strategy. Below, workers, boys barely older than schoolchildren, women in denim overalls, men with soot-blackened faces, move with astonishing precision. Thousands of them. They laugh, they sweat, they barely look up as a newly constructed ship is released down greased rails. The hull groans and slides into the water with a triumphant splash that sends waves slapping against the pier. Liberty Ship 551 is born. The workers cheer. A brass band erupts in the patriotic anthem. Flags flutter wildly. But for Dönitz, the music sounds like a funeral march. His own. He grips the railing until his knuckles pale. He thinks of the wolf packs prowling the Atlantic, U-boats stalking convoys by moonlight, torpedoes striking home with terrifying precision. He thinks of the desperate mission, starve Britain, choke her shipping, force her to her knees. And yet here in New York Harbor, the truth stands towering in steel. America can replace ships faster than Germany can sink them. His mind races back to Berlin, Hitler pounding on a map table, screaming for results. The Führer believes the U-boat is the key to victory. The U-boat is Germany's blade in the dark. The enemy cannot fight what it cannot see. But the enemy isn't just fighting back. The enemy is building faster. The escort officer continues, proudly shouting like a man placing a winning card on the table. 18 days, that's all it takes now to build one from keel to launch. Dönitz stiffens. He had heard whispers before, American production accelerating, industrial miracles being achieved, but seeing it is something else entirely. He watches another hull descend into the water like it's the easiest thing in the world. Another Liberty ship ready to join the lifeline across the Atlantic. 18 days. U-boats take over a year. How can a predator hope to survive when its prey reproduces like this? A tugboat steams past, its horn blaring, the star-spangled banner snapping in the wind. Dönitz narrows his eyes, taking in every detail. Every dock, every slip, every assembly line. This nation doesn't just build ships, they build the factories that build the ships. They construct the docks that launch the ships. They train thousands of hands that never seem to tire. He feels the war slipping like sand through clenched fists. Behind him, another launch is signaled, another roar, another triumphant splash. Ship 552 enters the war. This is mass production beyond imagination, beyond Germany's reach. He hears echoes of reports from the front. Convoy losses are reducing. More escorts, radar improving. U-boats destroyed before firing. Everything he is seeing explains everything he has feared. The officer by his side laughs, clapping Dönitz on the back. "Don't worry, plenty more coming. We'll drown Hitler and Liberty ships before this is over." Dönitz forces a thin smile. He cannot reveal his dread. He cannot reveal who he is. But deep inside, beneath the uniform he cannot show, his strategic instincts scream a single truth: the U-boat war is already lost. And yet back home, they still believe they're winning, still believe Britain can be strangled, still believe the Atlantic is theirs. He looks again at the shipyard, at the river of steel flowing endlessly into the sea, and understands the grim responsibility that awaits him when he returns to Berlin. He must convince a dictator drunk on dreams that the tide has turned, that the hunters are becoming the hunted, that unless Germany changes course, the ocean itself will become their grave. The cheering echoes like a haunting chorus. Another ship hits the water. Another blow to the Kriegsmarine. Dönitz watches the rising smoke and knows the war isn't decided on the battlefield. It's decided here, in the factories, in the furnace light, in the hands of workers who never stop. And the ocean war he built his life upon. April 14th, 1943, Berlin, Germany. The train screeches to a halt beneath the iron and glass canopy of Anhalter Bahnhof. A cold drizzle falls from a gray sky, turning the station platform slick and dim. Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz steps down, his civilian disguise now replaced by immaculate Kriegsmarine uniform, double-breasted, medals polished, cap brim shadowing weary eyes. No shipyard noise here. No triumphant launches, only the distant rumble of war grinding forward. Two Navy officers snap to attention and salute sharply. Dönitz returns the gesture, motioning them to follow him as he strides briskly toward the waiting staff car. Every step is heavy, not from fatigue, but from knowledge. Knowledge that carries weight like lead. The driver opens the door. Dönitz hesitates just a fraction before ducking inside. He isn't only returning to Berlin, he is returning with bad news for a man who refuses to hear it. The car speeds through the ruined and rebuilding heart of the Reich's capital. Anti-aircraft guns stand sentinel on rooftops. Propaganda posters declare victory with bold letters and iron smiles. Civilians hurry through the rain with ration bags clutched tight. Berlin pretends strength, but Dönitz now sees the cracks widening beneath the paint. He closes his eyes. The roar of shipyard cranes still haunts him. The splash of launches, the unstoppable machinery of American industry. The car pulls up to the Reich chancellery. Black stone, sharp edges, guarded by SS sentries rigid as statues. Inside, the air feels heavy and electric. Corridors lined with marble and muffled boots. A naval aide leans in close. "The Führer will see you shortly, Herr Gross-Admiral." Dönitz nods, but says nothing. He waits. He rehearses words in his mind, numbers, production rates, convoy survival statistics. He must present the truth cold and clinical. No emotion, no hesitation, because the truth is a weapon now. Moments later, heavy doors swing open. He steps inside. Hitler's office is harshly lit, maps sprawling across massive tables. Europe carved into red and black zones. Hitler stands hunched over the Atlantic chart, one finger tracing the convoy lanes like arteries feeding Britain's heart. His voice cuts the silence without looking up. "Dönitz, my U-boats, they are still sinking the English at an unprecedented rate, yes?" Dönitz swallows. There it is, the delusion. He moves closer, boots tapping against the polished floor, each step igniting tension. "My Führer," his voice is steady, but inside something trembles. "The Americans, they build ships faster than we can sink them." Hitler finally turns. His eyes are icy, unblinking. Dönitz holds his gaze, forces himself to continue. "I saw it with my own eyes. Liberty ships launching every few hours. Thousands of workers, men, women, operating around the clock. 18 days from keel to launch." He watches Hitler's face shift, confusion first, then irritation.
"We are losing the tonnage war," Dönitz pressed. "Our wolf packs bleed for little gain. Radar escorts multiply. Air coverage expands. We attack and are hunted in return." Hitler leans back slowly, fingers steepling beneath his chin. "Nonsense," he snaps. "We will deploy more U-boats, newer designs, better torpedoes." Dönitz takes a breath, knowing this moment may define everything. "My Führer, even 50 more boats cannot outpace a nation that builds ships while we build one." The words hang in the air like a death sentence. A long silence follows. Lightning flickers beyond the window, thunder rolling like naval guns. Dönitz pauses. Beneath the stone arch, letting cold droplets strike his face, he looks upward, eyes tracing storm clouds swirling above Berlin. A war cannot be won on denial, not when the enemy builds faster than you can destroy. The Atlantic is changing, and the hunters are becoming prey. Somewhere far across the ocean, another Liberty ship slides into the water. A single splash, echoed across thousands of miles, all the way to Berlin. Dönitz clenches his jaw. If the Führer will not accept reality, then reality will soon force itself upon the Reich with devastating clarity.
May 1943, Mid-Atlantic, North Atlantic Ocean. The sea heaves beneath a shrouded moon, black waves crashing against the steel hull of U-406. Inside the submarine, the air tastes of diesel fumes and sweat, stale, suffocating. Condensation drips from pipes like cold tears. Sailors whisper orders in tense, clipped German. Kapitänleutnant Ernst Jürgen Klopp peers through the periscope, scanning the night horizon. He can almost smell the convoy, oil, machinery, life. A dozen merchant ships plow through the swells, escorted by destroyers with sonar pings that slice through the hull like needle pricks. This should be a perfect attack. This should be a German hunting ground. But tonight, something feels different. A radar detector shrieks suddenly. Sharp, urgent. Klopp curses under his breath. Flieger! Low bearing, closing fast. The crew scrambles. Lights flicker red. Klaxon wails. But it's already too late. A British lead light erupts from the darkness above, blinding white beams stabbing straight onto the U-boat's hull like heavenly judgment. The roar of engines follows, and then, like thunder, depth charges drop. "Alarm! Crash dive!" Klopp screams. Steel groans as the boat pitches downward, nose sinking into black abyss. But the sea is no refuge. The first explosions hammer the hull. Metal shrieks. Rivets fly like bullets. Men are thrown violently against valves and pipes. The lights flicker, and then die. Only darkness, only fear. Klopp grips the periscope column, knuckles torn and bleeding. His ears ring. The boat trembles like a wounded beast. "Hold depth! Silent running!" But silence doesn't save them. The hunter is now the hunted. Above, destroyers converge. Sonar pings pulse steadily, mercilessly. More depth charges detonate, each one closer, each one a reminder of the shift in power. For years, German U-boats were kings of this ocean, wolves feasting on helpless prey. Now, the prey fights back. A young sailor murmurs a trembling prayer. Another clutches a rivet box like a child clutching a toy. Klopp's heart pounds in his ears as the bulkhead groans under pressure. The ocean is no longer a sanctuary. It is a trap. Thousands of kilometers away, in his Navy headquarters, Karl Dönitz reads the reports flooding in. U-boat losses doubled, wolf packs annihilated, convoy sinkings plummeted to historic lows. Each message delivered is another punch to the gut. U-89 sunk, all hands lost. U-456 missing, presumed destroyed. U-230 reporting severe air attack, no torpedoes fired. Dönitz rubs aching eyes. The walls feel like they're closing in. Every red X on the Atlantic map represents dozens of trained men. Submariners he personally saluted before deployment. He remembers their faces, their confidence, their belief in victory. Now, the ocean swallows them whole. A staff officer steps forward. Voice uneven. Herr Gross-Admiral, Allied air coverage now extends far into the mid-Atlantic. The Americans have deployed new escort carriers. Radar, radio direction finding. He hesitates to finish. Dönitz finishes for him. Everything we feared has arrived. He turns to the window, watching rain smear streaks over Berlin's dark skyline. The truth is unmistakable. The U-boat war is collapsing. Not because of courage, not because of need, but because industry, American factories, are unstoppable. Every U-boat lost, replaced by nothing. Every ship they sank, replaced threefold. Dönitz's voice is low, distant. How do we win a war of numbers when the enemy has numbers without end? No one answers. He doesn't expect them to. Back in the Atlantic, U-406 glides deeper, hull creaking like bones under massive strain. Klopp whispers the only command left: prepare for the worst. A massive explosion shakes the submarine. Lights flare for a second, then blackness again. Alarms wail uncontrollably. Water begins to spray in. The crew scrambles, hands shaking, trying to seal the breach. Klopp grips a rusted pipe to remain standing. He knows the truth. They are not predators tonight. They are prey, and the ocean shows no mercy.
June 1943, Berlin, Naval High Command. A wall of maps dominates the operations room, colored pins marking the last known positions of U-boats across the Atlantic. Not long ago, the grid buzzed with confident lines of attack, wolf packs encircling convoys like predators closing in on helpless prey. Now, it looks like a graveyard. More pins are removed every day. More units simply gone, lost with all hands, vanishing, swallowed by black water and Allied fire. Karl Dönitz stands in silence, jaw locked tight. His officers speak in low, fractured tones, reports that sound like death notices. U-408 sunk by aircraft, U-118 destroyed by depth charges, convoys reaching port intact. Every sentence is a blade. On the wall, chalk scrawls the harshest truth. May 1943, worst month in U-boat history. 43 U-boats lost, 2,000 submariners died. Irreplaceable men, irreplaceable time, irreplaceable hope. Dönitz doesn't show emotion. He can't afford to, not in front of the others. But deep within him a storm rages. He thinks back to New York Harbor, the rhythm of cranes, the unstoppable tide of Liberty ships, and realizes that first terrible moment of clarity was just the beginning. America isn't slowing. America is accelerating. A message is placed into his hand. He reads it once and closes his eyes. The Allies have perfected something new, something devastating. HFDF radio tracking, improved sonar, long-range liberators, escort carriers with hunter-killer groups. Technologies once experimental now operate with machine-like efficiency. U-boats dive and are immediately found. They flee and are hunted. They surface, and the sky itself lashes out with bombs. The wolves are dying faster than they can howl for help. Dönitz lays a trembling hand on the map, not from fear, but from rage. Rage at a war being lost, not through bravery, but through economics. Industrial might, assembly lines, resources that Germany cannot hope to match. An aide approaches quietly. Herr Gross-Admiral, High Command requests a strategy update for the Atlantic. They still believe... Dönitz cuts him off sharply. They believe lies. The aide stiffens, caught between truth and treason. Dönitz steps closer, voice a low growl. Tell them the Atlantic is becoming a tomb. For every victory we claim, 10 losses bury it. He exhales a shuttered breath, the confession of a commander who has seen enough. The U-boat arm is bleeding out. Somewhere in the mid-Atlantic, the sea has claimed U-406. Wreckage, oil slicks, torn metal, a drifting life jacket, rocks in the tide. No survivors, not even a signal flare to mark the end, just another silent disappearance. Above, a British B-24 circles once, confirms the kill, and turns homeward, like a hawk satisfied with its hunt. This scene repeats again, and again, and again. The ocean, once Germany's greatest ally, now feels like an executioner working overtime. Back in Berlin, the officers leave the room one by one, but Dönitz remains staring at the map alone. Rain patters against the high windows, drowning out the quiet ticking of the wall clock. He presses his palm against the cold table and whispers, not in defeat, but in fury. We cannot win by drowning ships when the enemy floods the sea with more. The realization weighs heavier than the deepest depth. Germany's war beneath the waves is no longer a terror to the Allies. It is a delay, a slowing of the inevitable, a futile attempt to hold back a rising ocean of American steel. The U-boat campaign, once the pride of the Kriegsmarine, is becoming a tragedy written in the names of young submariners who will never surface again. Dönitz closes his eyes, seeing in memory the Liberty ships launching endlessly into sunlight. He can still hear the band, the cheering, the water splashing against new hulls. A future being built and a future being destroyed. Steel versus steel, but only one side has more to give.
August 1943, Flensburg, Germany. Kriegsmarine shipyards. Welding torches hiss like angry serpents. Sparks cascade in orange showers as workers rush to complete a new generation of submarines. Sleeker hulls, deeper diving pressure casings, snorkel systems to remain hidden beneath the surface even while recharging batteries. The Type 21 and Type 23 U-boats, visions of a reborn wolf pack. Dönitz walks the length of a towering dry dock, boots echoing across scaffolding and steel. Engineers stand proudly beside blueprints pinned up like promises. Their voices carry hope. These new boats will run faster underwater than on the surface. Silent electric motors, Allied sonar will struggle, rearming torpedo tubes in minutes. Miracles of German engineering. But all Dönitz sees is time burning away. He stops at the bow of an unfinished submarine, its skin still raw metal, reaches out and lays a hand on the cold steel. He wants to believe this is salvation, that one breakthrough can turn the ocean black for Allied ships once more. Yet every calculation, every sober thought screams the opposite. By the time these marvels sail, the war will already be decided. He turns to his officers and asks bluntly, "How many months until full deployment?" The engineer clears his throat. "At best, late 1944. Too late, far too late." Across the Atlantic, Liberty ship assembly line. Rivets fire. Cranes swing high. New hulls await their baptism into seawater. A war guided not by generals, but by foremen. Not by strategy, but by scale. Liberty ships roll out like clockwork. Tankers, destroyer escorts. Machine shops are afloat. An empire of steel that does not sleep. Workers raise banners. Built in 17 days. Another ship for victory. We can do it again tomorrow. The ocean lanes Britain once considered fragile lifelines become superhighways, thick with cargo, fuel, troops. Every ship sunk has two behind it, and every U-boat sunk is gone forever. Flensburg, Dönitz's private office. Night has fallen. Rain spatters against frosted windows, and distant thunder rolls like naval guns. Dönitz sits alone, uniform jacket unbuttoned, fatigue carving its way into his face. A single lamp burns over his desk, illuminating stacks of loss reports. He pushes them aside and opens a small leather-bound journal. Inside, neat handwriting fills the pages, dates, tonnage figures, strategic notes, hopes, fears. He hesitates, and then writes, "The U-boat war, my war, is sinking beneath the weight of American industry. Technology and steel now command the sea. Courage cannot triumph over a factory." He
He pauses, gripping the pen tighter. We are no longer wolves. We are prey swimming in an ocean not our own. The words bleed like wounds. A knock interrupts his thoughts. A young officer enters stiffly, helmet tucked under one arm. His eyes betray a truth he cannot voice. Herr Gross-Admiral? The Führer demands updated orders for Atlantic operations. He believes we can turn the tide if we strike harder. Dönitz stares at the wall map. Red markers retreating, black markers vanishing. Strike harder. With what? Ghosts? But he cannot say that. Not yet. He stands, smoothing his cap. We will adapt. We always adapt. The officer nods and leaves. The door closes softly, too softly. Dönitz exhales, shoulders collapsing under the weight of an empire's denial. Above him, the storm rages, wind screaming against the harbor cranes like a cry for help. In the darkness, Dönitz understands the final truth. When a war meets industry, courage loses. And in that realization is sorrow and anger. For the men still out there beneath the waves, for the young engineers rushing to build miracles too late, for a dream sinking faster than any ship ever could. Lightning flashes, brief light across the map of the Atlantic. Victory was once just across that ocean. Now it slips beneath the waves, forever.
January 1944. North Atlantic, 400 miles west of Ireland. Waves crash over the battered conning tower of U-276 as it surfaces into a pitch-black night. The wind screams like a living thing, slicing across the deck with icy fingers that freeze skin through soaked wool. The crew moves quickly, trained efficiently, fighting against exhaustion and fear. "We must send a message," the radioman shouts, battling the storm. Kapitän-Leutnant Meyer nods, though hesitation clouds his eyes. Radio transmissions. They are no longer a lifeline. They are a beacon, a flare in the dark that brings Allied destroyers howling toward their target. But they must report. High Command demands it. The antenna crackles to life. 9 seconds of transmission. 10. 11. Ping! Sonar from above. A single pulse through the hull like the heartbeat of a nightmare. Meyer's breath catches. His eyes widen. The sound is followed by another, closer. The storm hides the enemy, but everyone aboard knows the truth. They have been found. "Crash dive, now!" Men tumble through the hatch as the steel beast plunges beneath the waves. Valves scream, ballast tanks flood. The hull groans under pressure, the deep dark swallowing them whole. Hydrophones detect the enemy advancing. The ocean again becomes a coffin. Depth charges explode. The vessel lurches violently. Gauges shatter. Sparks flash. Pipes rupture. Salt water sprays out like blood from a severed artery. Below them, another explosion. Closer. Then another. The lights fail. Screams mix with grinding metal. The U-boat sinks, not by inches, but by fate. Berlin. Kriegsmarine headquarters. The loss arrives hours later. One more report tossed onto a mountain of tragedy. Dönitz reads it without blinking. Though each name cuts deeper than the last, he dismisses his staff. He needs silence. Walking to the operations map, he studies the Atlantic, once a hunter's paradise. He sees the convoy routes not as opportunities, but as fortresses guarded by unbreakable steel. Air patrols dominate the skies. Destroyers scour the depths. Escort carriers bring death to the horizon. And beneath those waves, German heroes die unheard. He places his fingertips on the map where U-276 once was. It feels like touching a tombstone. Behind him, a voice speaks carefully. "Herr Gross-Admiral, Berlin reports the Americans launched another 20 Liberty ships this week." Another 20. Dönitz exhales slowly. He imagines the shipyards ablaze with energy and life, not fear, not desperation, just endless industry. He turns to his aide. "No matter how many we sink, we cannot drain an ocean with our bare hands," he says softly. The aide doesn't reply. He can't, because he knows Dönitz speaks truth that no one in Berlin will admit aloud. The U-boat arm is dying, and the Allies barely notice. January 1944.
Boston Naval Shipyard. Under brilliant lights, Liberty ship SS Robert Payne slides into the water. A crowd cheers and whistles. A camera flashes. Children wave flags. A launch feels like a celebration, not a sacrifice. Every new hull means food for Britain, means fuel for tanks in Italy, means soldiers headed for the invasion to come. A tide rising, against which Germany has no wall strong enough to hold. Back in Berlin, Dönitz stands before a portrait of sailors he once sent to sea. Hundreds of faces, hundreds of smiles, now most are gone. He touches the frame and whispers, barely a breath, "I asked the sea for victory, and it took my men instead." The wind howls behind the windows, Atlantic weather reaching Berlin, reminding him the ocean wins for those who own the factories, who own the skies, who own time. His war, the war he believed would decide everything, has already been decided, and the Admiralty refuses to see the bodies beneath the waves. Dönitz turns away from the portrait, his eyes burning like coals. Hope still exists, but not for conquest, only for delay, only for survival. As long as there is one U-boat left, one torpedo, one sailor, Germany will fight. But he knows now, they are not fighting to win, they are fighting not to lose faster. Lightning flashes above Berlin once more, framing Dönitz in silhouette, a commander trapped between duty and doom. He whispers into the dark, "The U-boat war is lost," but only the thunder answers.
May 1945, Flensburg, Germany. The war is quiet now, not by peace, but by exhaustion. The once mighty Kriegsmarine base at Flensburg stands stripped bare, piers empty, cranes motionless, flags lowered in surrender. The air no longer vibrates with the thunder of factories or the steel clang of submarines being born. The sea laps gently at the docks, where wolf packs once sailed proudly toward their hunts. Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz, head of the Third Reich in its final collapsing days, stands alone at the water's edge. The wind pulls at his coat as seabirds circle overhead, calling into a silence that feels too large to bear. The U-boats that remain lie idle, gray, weathered corpses of a dream that once felt unstoppable. Dönitz looks down into the harbor waters, dark and reflective. He traces with his eyes the ghosts of submarines long gone. 27,000 young men he commanded beneath the waves. 27,000 who never returned. The statistics echo through his mind like a dirge. 781 U-boats lost, most destroyed in the final 2 years. Thousands of ships sunk, yet millions more launched. The truth that began in New York Harbor has fully surfaced here. The U-boat war wasn't lost in battle. It was lost in production. He no longer needs secret inspections or intelligence reports. The evidence lies in every silent dock, every widowed family, every empty berth where sailors once laughed before diving into the deep. The sea breeze carries with it memories he can't escape, welding sparks lighting the New York sky, Liberty ships sliding into the water like clockwork, Hitler's eyes, unwilling to see, the desperation in the reports, the cries inside pressure-crushed hulls. He hears the distant rumble of Allied vehicles approaching, an occupying army, securing what victory has already claimed. Dönitz straightens, his posture still that of a naval commander, even in defeat, but his eyes are oceans of regret. Behind him, a young officer approaches quietly. "Herr Großadmiral, the British are here." Dönitz doesn't turn immediately. Instead, he says softly, almost to the sea, almost to the dead, "We were the hunters before the ocean turned against us." He allows himself one final look over the waters, a final goodbye to every man he sent into darkness. Then he turns and walks toward captivity, not as the triumphant architect of victory once imagined by Berlin, but as the admiral who understood too late that ships are not sunk by torpedoes alone. Wars are won by the hands that build faster than enemies can destroy, by the factories that roar louder than guns, by oceans filled not with fear, but with steel. As Dönitz is taken into custody, the harbor behind him is still. The war beneath the waves has ended, not with the glorious destruction of Britain, but with Germany drowning in a sea of American shipbuilding, victory launched from the slipways, defeat measured in hull numbers. The U-boat war is over. The outcome was sealed long before the last submarine sank.